Good evening, Nigeria. Welcome to Voice of the People Television, where we give you more than a voice. You are now tuned into the political lens. And like I always tell you every single day, this is not just another talk show. I bid you welcome to the front lines of the real conversation, the place where power meets its match, where politics is more than just a game. It is a battle for the future of our great nation. Tonight, we'll dive deep into the heart of Nigerian politics, where the stakes are high and the gains are personal. On Political Lens, we don't just talk politics, we dissect it. We don't just follow the trends, we create the conversation. Here, we're unafraid to challenge the status quo, to pull back the curtain and to expose the past struggles that shape our future. Tonight, let's talk about certain events currently taking place in the Nigerian polity. First up, the Supreme Court earlier today upheld the decision of the Court of Appeal in Abuja, which affirmed the election of Monday Okpebholo as governor of Edo State in the 2024 governorship election. A 5-member panel of the Apex Court, led by Justice Mohammed Garba, today dismissed the appeal of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP candidate Asue Ighodalo, to nullify the outcome of the governorship election that held in the state on September 21, 2024, saying the suit was lacking in merit. Justice Garba said the appellants failed to prove that Okpebholo did not secure lawful votes in the election and did not properly demonstrate that the tribunal and the Court of Appeal's decision was perverse. Meanwhile, Asue Ighodalo, the PDP's candidate in the September 2024 governorship election in Edo State, says he feels a deep sense of betrayal in the Supreme Court judgment delivered today. In his reaction to the Apex Court verdict, Ighodalo said, although he accepts the finality of the judgment, he cannot pretend that what was delivered amounts to justice. Also, the immediate past governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, has said he strongly disagrees with the Supreme Court's ruling affirming Governor Monday Okpebholo's election victory. His reaction was contained in a statement released today following the Apex Court's unanimous decision. In the statement, Obaseki said he believes that the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and its candidate, Dr. Asue Ighodalo, won the September 21, 2024 governorship election. Obaseki also emphasized that the party's legal challenge went across the Election Petition Tribunal, the Court of Appeal, and ultimately the Supreme Court was driven by a strong conviction that the election was manipulated. However, he noted that despite what he described as clear evidence, all courts ruled against the PDP. Well, still on the PDP, the immediate past governor of Benue State, Samuel Ortom, has said that the southern region must be allowed to complete its 8-year term before power returns to the north. The governor stated this today while addressing journalists in Makurdi, the state capital. He asserted that he would not support a northern candidate if the PDP chooses to field one in the 2027 election. There is no gainsaying the fact that opposition politics in Nigeria right now is really topsy-turvy, as all the different opposition figures are really running around to know where they will align themselves with ahead of the 2027 election. Away from that particular development, let's look at another recent development where the Apex Igbo social cultural body, Ohanaeze Igbo, has revealed that quiet diplomatic engagements are currently underway between President Bola Tinubu, the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, and some select Igbo elders. Now, he says these talks are aimed at securing the unconditional release of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Namdi Kanu. In a statement issued on Wednesday and signed by Mazi Okechukwu Isiguzuru, the Deputy President General of Ohanaeze Igbo, and also Chief Thompson Ohia, the group's national spokesman, the organization stated that it is committed to transparency and felt obligated to update the Igbo public on the ongoing back-channel discussions. Now, according to the Ohanaeze, the initiative is being led by Senator Umahi with the full backing of the organization and the Igbo leadership. While Kanu's representatives are not yet formally part of the process, the group has promised to bring them in at a later stage to ensure openness and unity amongst all stakeholders. The group urged pro-Biafra agitators to suspend protests and inflammatory rhetoric, assuring them that no political conditions will be tied to Kanu's release. Now, I have joining me virtually to discuss these issues. I have our guest, Comrade Godspar Okumba, who is a public affairs analyst, a political commentator, a human rights advocate, and Secretary General of the Edo Civil Society Organizations. Also, joining me today is Anselm Usioise Ojezua Esquire, a PDP governorship aspirant for Edo State 2024 and former chairman of the APC in Edo State. We'll take a very short break, and when we return, I'll be speaking to my guests on the development in Edo State and indeed other parts of the country. You're still watching The Political Lens right here on Voice of the People Television. Stay tuned.
In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get tribe! Hunger no get religion!
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology, social justice, and more. Let's talk.
Welcome back. Still tuned into The Political Lens right here on Voice of the People Television. My virtual guest is currently in that legal practitioner Anselm Usioise Ojezua Esquire, who's a PDP governorship aspirant for Edo State 2024 and former chairman of the APC in Edo State. Welcome, sir, and thank you for joining me this evening. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank
you so much. So one camp is happy and another camp is disappointed. Aswa Igodalo says he feels betrayed by the Supreme Court judgment. But I want to know, how do you feel and how do the Edo people feel about this particular development? Governor Nnamdi has really dived into the business of governance, while Aswa Igodalo has been dragging him around from the tribunal to the appeal court to the Supreme Court. A final judgment has come today. Maybe in pidgin parlance, the way they say it, he will finally rest.
Well, the Supreme Court judgment is final. And that's the end of the story. But the truth about it is that I think the reason why there is a bit of controversy is because it's a political matter. Otherwise, if it was strictly a legal issue, and you look at the details, whether there was merit or not in the application or even in the prosecution of the petition at all levels, if you ask me, the performance of the PDP in prosecuting the case fell far short of what was required by the law. And the judges identified it at every level. And you must take note of the fact that the decisions were unanimous from the beginning to the end.
Can you hear me, Barrister?
I can hear you clearly. You can hear me?
All right, thank you very much. I can hear you. It's so much better as at this point. Like I said, Governor Nnamdi has really dived into governance of Edo State, even while this legal battle was going back and forth. You are a legal practitioner. When you say that the performance of the PDP fell short, what was it they ought to have done that they did not do?
Well, they didn't meet the requirement of the Evidence Act. For instance, you know as well as I do that only eyewitnesses can give evidence in court relating to matters before the court. So if you are complaining about issues that took place at the polling unit, what the judges will want to see are witnesses in the polling unit who were there as at the time these things happened. PDP did not produce them. They didn't produce them.
To actually win and to prove that Aswa Igodalo won the elections if they did not provide what was actually needed to make their case stronger?
No, they didn't provide any. There was nothing to show that they won or that there was even anything wrong with the way and manner that INEC conducted the elections. All the forms that were necessary to be filled and submitted were filled and submitted at all levels. For at the polling At the polling unit level, you have the Form EC8A, which is the result sheet, which is the radical document. And then they go for ward collation. They will now, at the end of collation, they will fill the Form EC8B. Then they will go to the local government until they get into the state capital. All these procedures were followed and all the necessary documents were available. So the judges had no option but to agree that this was done. You know, for you to remove those ones, you have to come up with evidence from the polling unit level that something went wrong in a place. For instance, they claim that there were anomalies in about 260 polling units. But how many witnesses in all? Because the requirement would be that you would bring witnesses for 260 units. That is to say, a minimum of 260 witnesses. Those are the only people who can be referred to as eyewitnesses. What is even worse, they caused the court to order that INEC should provide beavers machines and a lot of documents from INEC. No witness that they brought spoke to any of those items. So what did they expect the court to act on?
One would have actually expected that the PDP would have done their due diligence before dragging this case all the way to the Supreme Court. But would you say that the margin between the amount of votes scored by now Governor Monday Okpebholo and his opponent, Asue Ighodalo, could have contributed to Ighodalo saying that he won the election and that the APC was actually involved in electoral malpractice that prevented him from being announced as the winner of that election? Because Governor Monday Okpebholo actually scored, it's about 44,000 people, 44,000 votes is the difference between the amount of votes that Asue Ighodalo had and Governor Monday Okpebholo had.
44,000 is a lot. You are talking about 44,000 people. That's a lot. And for you want to erase them completely without any evidence whatsoever? How would you do that? Even if it was 10, you still have to, just like, for instance, in cases of overvoting, in a unit, if there is overvoting by one, the entire unit is cancelled. By one, just by one. So 40,000 is a lot in an election.
I want to come a bit personal now, Barrister. How do you feel about this particular judgment? You've been a member of the PDP, and at some point you've been a member of the APC. How do you feel about this particular judgment? And can you speak for the Edo people? How do they feel about this judgment? Are they happy with their governor?
Well, all along now there's been some level of suspense, arising from the various cases. And when an administrator has a case hanging over his head, you don't expect him to be focused in carrying.
The judiciary now also has to decide who is right when the case comes to court.
Yes, because the judiciary, that is their role, but they will act on the evidence available to them. None of them is a player. None of them is a witness. None of them is a participant. They will only act when you bring evidence to them. On the basis of their evidence or the evidence put before them, they will give you a resolution, which is what they did. A lot of issues that were raised during the presidential case were matters that ought to have been raised even before the election. Where were they?
Former Governor Obaseki keeps insisting that the polls were manipulated to favor the
allegations over issues that are so serious as to governorship from a former governor. I find it a little bit unfair because he himself has been a beneficiary of this same system. He has been a beneficiary of INEC conduct of elections. He has also been a beneficiary of the judiciary.
Is that you
So
agreeing that INEC did not conduct that
statement.
election the way it was supposed to, and that the PDP actually has a point when they say there was manipulation? If you say that Governor Obaseki has been a beneficiary of how INEC conducts his election and the judiciary's judgment.
I didn't get your question.
I'm saying, is that you agreeing when you say that Governor Godwin Obaseki, former Governor Godwin Obaseki, is a beneficiary of the way INEC conducts its elections and the judiciary's judgment after such elections? Is that an agreement that maybe indeed there was manipulation, or that INEC did not conduct that election the way it was supposed to? Because a number of Edo people complained about being disenfranchised during the polls.
Well, you see, when I say he was a beneficiary, as I did, it's the same INEC that conducted this election that conducted his own in 2020. And as at that time, because the result favored him, he thought that INEC did well. The matter went to court, and the court ruled in his favor. He said the judiciary was one of the best in the world. The same judiciary, the same INEC, it has now come up with a result that doesn't favor him. He now remembers that there's something called manipulation. I think that's subjective. I think it is unfair, and I think it is not true. That's what I mean.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Barrister. Let's still look at the PDP. Right now, we cannot continue to act as if there is no issue within the ranks of the PDP. What with their presidential candidate in the 2023 election now being a part of the ADC coalition, everyone who seems to have one leg in their party and one leg out, including Peter Obi, who contested under the platform of the Labour Party in 2023, keep saying that they are learning the template from Wike, who seems to have one leg in the PDP and one in the APC. The immediate past governor of Benue State, Samuel Ortom, has said that the southern region must be allowed to complete its 8-year term before power returns to the north. He goes ahead to say even if his party, the PDP, fields a northern candidate ahead of 2027, that he will not vote for such a candidate. And if the PDP chooses to field a northern candidate in 2027, he will have nothing to do with such. What can you say about what is currently happening within the PDP? They used to be the main opposition party to the APC, the way the APC was when former President Goodluck Jonathan was in power. But the PDP seems to have lost a stronghold as Nigeria's main opposition party, with all the internal wranglings, anti-party activities, this person blaming that person, the issue with who will be the national secretary. It's a lot of issues, actually. Can you hear me, Barrister?
Yeah, I can hear you, although it's cutting off a bit. I hope you can hear me as well.
I can hear you perfectly. Please go ahead.
All right. You know, whatever is going on in PDP now, in my opinion, is self-inflicted. And it's something that has started a long time ago. When you have a group of people who refuse to obey their own rules, this is what happens to them. Every transaction is taken as an opportunity, you know, to make money. Leadership is not like that. But unfortunately, I don't know how PDP managed to find itself where it is now. If you look at the number of national chairmen they've had over the years, that would speak volumes about the ability of PDP to manage its own affairs. But what has happened now is that those who are in charge of PDP now, they have sold their conscience, and it is catching up with them now. Don't forget that there was a time after Jonathan had left office, PDP had a problem of how to fund their activities at the national level. A lot of their leaders, including their governors, refused to play their part. If I recall, I think it was only Wike that provided resources to ensure that PDP survived up till the time he contested for the ticket of the party for presidency. And how did they reward him? They rewarded him with failure. Apart from the fact that power was supposed to shift to the south, PDP still went ahead and nominated a northerner who for most of that period that I speak of was even outside of the country. paid no attention to the party, but he became the beneficiary. What is even worse, even when issues were raised to say, okay, let them resolve these issues and put Wike in a position to be committed, they promised him vice presidency, and they came up with a committee that will come and say that it is no longer so. So what do you expect Wike to do? Continue to invest in the party that has no response?
One would think he would actually walk away and totally align himself with the APC administration that he's currently serving under as a minister. He doesn't want to leave. The party doesn't want to expel him. Is that to say that, he's such a financier of the party that they need him in the party, even when it seems that he's working against the party? Because a lot of political analysts like yourself have said that the PDP's situation, the problem, is self-inflicted. But the party doesn't seem to realize that their problem is coming from within, as they keep blaming each other, blaming external forces, even going as far as blaming the APC for planting moles within them to destabilize the party.
Is that not laughable? It's laughable now. They ought to know that they have to manage their own affairs by themselves. You know, PDP problem did not start overnight. It didn't even start with the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. PDP problem started even before Jonathan left office. And the leadership in PDP is totally absent. In all of this, have you seen where PDP leadership, I mean leaders from various states, coming together to say, look, let us look into this issue? I haven't seen it. They are totally absent. What does that tell you? That tells you that they are either not there anymore, or they just feel like being negligent. And it's just a pity that in this country, whenever somebody suffers a mishap, he starts looking for witches and wizards.
But what do you have to say about the former Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom saying he will not support a northern candidate, even if such a candidate is fielded by his own party, the PDP? We keep talking about this unofficial arrangement, this gentleman's agreement of 8 years of the North, 8 years of the South. Peter Obi, who says he's in the presidential race ahead of 2027, said he will do only one term, that is to complete President Tinubu's term if he's elected in 2027. Now, former Governor Samuel Ortom says it has to be a Southerner and not a Northerner. But Atiku Abubakar still has his ambitions, even if he is a part of the ADC coalition right now.
Well, you know, Ortom's statement, in my opinion, is a statement of principles. It's based on principles. If we have an agreement, whether written or not, as gentlemen, we are supposed to keep it. If we say that we want to recognize North and South, if the North has kept it for 8 years, you expect the South to keep it for 8 years. So for a Northerner to come and say, oh, he will come, he will only do one term, I think that person is not honest with himself.
If a Southerner comes out to say he will do one term, that such a person is not being honest? Is that say everyone who becomes president wants to do two terms?
No, I didn't talk about the Southerner. I said a Northerner. If a Northerner comes, because by the time President Tinubu does 4 years, then it means the South still has another term of 4 years. And now Peter Obi has said he will only do one term because he knows that the likely suspicion is that if he does one term, he will want to do another. Don't forget, when Obasanjo came in 1999, he was expected to do only one term. But by 2003, he was already angling for a second term. In fact, he even tried to do a third term. So if anybody tells you he wants to do one term in the morning, nobody knows what he will say in the evening.
So you're saying there is that distrust from the North, where they would rather President Tinubu complete 8th term and then hand over back to the North, instead of electing someone else who may then decide to go for 2 terms, a Southerner.
Yes, why would they not be suspicious? Even when President Yar'Adua died, and Jonathan, by the Constitution, had to complete his tenure. I mean, that term. Don't forget, Jonathan is from the South. But by reason of what has happened, it became inevitable that he should do that. Instead of completing that term and going, he negotiated to do another term, which he did. And then thereafter, he still tried to do another term. So the Northerners, on the basis of history, you can't blame them.
A lot of people are actually losing faith in the PDP as a viable opposition right now, not just as a viable opposition, but saying that the PDP may totally lose relevance ahead of 2027, as Atiku Abubakar seems to be quietly moving out of the party, even though he hasn't been expelled and he hasn't resigned from the party to fully be a part of the ADC. It's almost as if there is an ADC party and an ADC coalition. So whether or not we want to agree that there are factions, we may not call it factions, but there is an ADC coalition and an ADC party. In Osun State just today, over 1,000 members of the PDP shunned the ADC, shunned every other party, and declared for the APC-led administration of President Bola Tinubu. 1,000 members of a party, that is 1,000 people who could have convinced another 1,000 people to vote for the PDP in 2027. Isn't the party really losing its composure?
I think you have made the correct statement, because looking at PDP, you cannot honestly say that all is well with PDP. In fact, the question now is, who is remaining in PDP? That is the question. Whether there's anybody of substance or of note left in PDP. And you can see now that even some of them that have gone to or are going to ADC, if you look at them, you can also classify them in terms of their political viability. Because a politician is valued in terms of the amount of votes that he can stimulate. Looking at all of them, I'm not too sure that will pose a strong opposition to APC that is fast growing. And you know, what a lot of people don't know is that in this country, it is part of our culture. As the politicians in Nigeria always want to work with a party that is viable, a party that can give, you know, amenities or patronage either to them, their communities, or to their state. So there are these factors. What is in PDP now that you can sell to anybody, including people in PDP? I don't see it. As of today, the only viable party in Nigeria is APC. As of today.
Not even the ADC coalition that has just come on stream, with a number of people, even political, would I say political heavyweights and political elites like Rotimi Amechi declaring for the party. And all of these people have presidential ambition. So it makes you wonder who's going to step down for who's going to shelve their ambition, who is going to wait till 2031. Atiku is one person who many Nigerians feel should play the role of a big brother. We've been talking about this since last week. And just push for a Southerner to actually be the presidential flag bearer of the ADC. But he's been contesting for so long. Would you really expect him to shelve his ambition right now?
Well, you know, this coalition reminds me of what happened several years ago when Shagari was president. And there was this coalition that was coming up between Zik, Ibrahim, Waziri, and I think Chief Awolowo. And then Shagari referred to them as three blind mice. And truly, in the end, the coalition did not work. I don't see this one going anywhere because I don't think they have met even the minimum requirement.
All right then. Still political lens this evening. Let's take a look at another very pertinent situation. Now, the way we talk about the North as a voting bloc and how many votes they can give a presidential candidate, we also have people talking about the South, and you know how we can divide the South into Southwest, South-South, and the Southeast. Just last week, the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, came out to say that the release of the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, is not a prerequisite or has not been given as a prerequisite by Southeasterners to President Tinubu saying, okay, if you release this man, we'll vote for you. Anyway, the Apex Igbo social cultural body, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, revealed that Minister of Works Dave Umahi has let them know that quiet, very low-key diplomatic engagements are currently underway between the president and the Minister of Works and some select elders for Southeast extraction, saying that these talks are aimed at securing the unconditional release of the IPOB leader, Namdi Kanu. They are saying that it would do so well. In fact, the Southeasterners will be so happy if this happens. Do you actually see this happening? Following what's been going on, his extraordinary rendition back to Nigeria, he's been in DSS custody for 4 years now. In fact, at some point, he told Justice Binta Nyako to recuse herself from his case. This man is under trial for terrorism. Do you actually see President Bola Tinubu playing this, let's say maybe as the last card ahead of 2027 elections? Because we know that there are a lot of political permutations and machinations in the works.
Well, you know, this issue is an issue that is more of security than political, because Nnamdi Kanu is not known to be a politician in the normal sense of the word. Therefore, I'm not in a position to say it's going to be a political a political move by the president. But I do know that every leader, any responsible leader, would want for there to be peace, you know, in his domain, because without peace, there can be no progress. And I think that if they're able to resolve the issues relating to Nnamdi Kanu, it will go a long way to reduce the tension that is building up in our country.
In the whole country or in the Southeast, because one situation that we've seen a lot in the Southeast, one thing that has actually led to a lot of insecurity and instability in the Southeast. We've seen unknown gunmen. Sometimes there'll be attacks and the police will say, oh, it's IPOB. Sometimes without full investigation, they'll say, oh, preliminary investigation has been conducted. This is IPOB or this is ESN. Just yesterday, we had the report of ESN engaging policemen in Anambra State in a gun duel, leading to the death of about 3 to 4 people right there in that particular state. Would you actually say, like you rightly said, this is a security situation, do you think his release could actually lead to stability in that region of the country?
It could be. Unfortunately, I don't have all the facts. I don't have all the information. I don't have all the intelligence required to come up to a conclusion. But there are people, like you have mentioned, the president, the minister, the Ohanaeze. These are leaders in their own rights who have all the information available to them. Even when you say it's unconditional, I don't think anything is totally unconditional, you know, because if you want to reach some kind of reconciliation or some peace, these people must make a concession. Both ways must be ready to make concessions.
Both ways must be ready to make concessions. Let's look at a very new development that happened earlier today. Suspended senator, whom the court has asked to be reinstated, representing Kogi Central. I'm talking about Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who last week, after the court judgment that told the Senate to actually reinstate her after she has tendered an apology for it to replace the satirical apology she posted when that whole issue was on social media, said she would resume on Tuesday. She did not resume on Tuesday. Right now, the Senate, she has been removed as the chairman of a committee with someone else replacing her. We've seen people complain about the fact that we do not have a lot of women in politics in Nigeria, which is the reason why her case gained widespread, in fact, international recognition, because she did go on international media to talk about the fates that she claims that she suffered in the hands of the president of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio. She's yet to resume. Yes, she's also yet to publish the apology like the court directed. But why remove her as a committee chairman? Well, some people will view that through the lens of bias and pettiness, if you will.
Well, I read about the removal, and I also saw some pertinent issues there. You know, as at the time she was sent on suspension, rightly or wrongly, she could not perform those functions. And so those responsibilities were now suffering. And the responsibility to appoint chairmen of committees in the Senate lies squarely in the hands of the Senate president. And he has a discretion on this matter. Quite honestly, even if she were to be sitting on her seat, he could still have had, he can always reshuffle. That is, but I think maybe it has to do with the fact that she has not been able to perform those functions during the period of these issues. And if there is need for those things to be taken care of, then somebody has to do it.
All right, then let's quickly look at El-Rufai taunting those currently in power in the APC, a party which he used to be a part of, a party which he actually went to be screened to be a minister under this particular administration. He's taunting those in the APC, saying that your time will soon end, other people will take over, you're acting like, you're not going to leave this seat anytime soon. But a lot of Nigerians view El-Rufai's utterances through a cloak of anger, annoyance at this administration. If he had been told to bow and go during his ministerial appointment, would he be saying all of this? Would he be a part of the ADC coalition? Would he be criticizing his administration? Would he be revealing most of the dealings that he had with President Bola Tinubu when the going was good?
You have said it all. I don't think he would have made this statement if he was part of this government. When people have had the opportunity to be inside government, especially in a country like Nigeria, it's so difficult to deal with life outside government. And I think, it's more or less like what the doctors would have referred to as withdrawal syndrome. He can't handle the fact that he's no more in power and he's not in a position to influence things. And then from the outside, he's reacting. That's what is happening.
That's what is happening. All right, we are actually rounding up as at this moment, Barrister, and I really thank you for joining me. Let's go back to the Edo State issue before we totally round up. What would you say should be the way forward for the losers who are not very happy as at this moment? Because, when you take a case to the election tribunal, you're taking it to the appeal court, taking it to the Supreme Court, this person really believed that he had a case. But as they will say in English, the Supreme Court has burst his bubble. And right now, he has to go treat his wounds. Let me not say lick his wounds, actually. But how can they actually do better ahead of 2027? Because as it is right now, many Nigerians do not trust in the efficacy of the PDP anymore, whether in Edo State or in other parts of the country.
The biggest problem they are going to have is how to generate confidence on the part of their members and other citizens of Edo State. They gave them so much hype as to what will be the outcome. They were so confident that in spite of the deficiencies in their case, they refused to accept that, and they kept giving people unnecessary hope. How are they going to now generate that confidence now that the people know that they've been lying to them all along? I think that is the biggest problem they will have. Whether they will be able to recover from it between now and then the next election, I don't know. Who's going to believe? That's the issue, confidence or lack of it.
Confidence or lack of it. I dare say, Barrister, that you actually know enough to tell us just how the PDP is performing, because you're a PDP governorship aspirant for Edo State. And you're also a former chairman of the APC in Edo State. One would say that's quite the resume. You've been a part of the current ruling party. You've been a part of the current main, or what is supposed to be the main opposition party. Let's go a little personal. What is the difference? To Nigerians, Nigerians will say they are the same. In fact, a lot of Nigerians believe that the ADC is the APC wearing in white, just putting on the white cloak, right? So, you've been a part of these parties, even if it's at the state level. What is the difference? What is that juice? What is it that the APC has that the PDP does not? What is it that the PDP has that the APC does not? And where are you now?
Okay, let me put it like this. The difference between the APC and the ADC, the APC, even as at the time the APC was formed, it was more or less an agreement between President Bola Tinubu, as he is now, and Buhari. General Muhammadu Buhari, these two men are known to be men who control sections of the country. And they agreed that if they were to put their forces together, they will be able to wrest power from PDP. And that is exactly what they did. The ADC, the people in ADC, in my opinion, don't control any section of the country. If at all, you may say that because of the last election, that Peter Obi can say he has advantage in the southeast. Can Atiku say the same thing in the northeast? Can Amechi say the same thing in the south-south? So what are they bringing to the table that is viable enough to make the difference? That is the difference between APC and ADC.
So we can chalk it down to the amount of political heavyweights in each of those parties. But I also want to know what's different between the PDP and the APC.
Well, between the PDP and the APC appears to be able to manage itself better. Take the last governorship election. In APC, they had about 14 or so governorship aspirants. As at the time they finished their process, which they had to do twice, you would have expected that was the ingredient for, destruction was there. But they managed themselves better. Most of their aspirants, I think about the 13 of them, were with the governorship candidate. In the PDP, there were 10. And out of the 10, 9 were against the candidate. And they said they were not relevant. They were either described as not relevant, not important, or not heavyweights. But you can see what has happened. So that is the difference between PDP. It has to do with management. It has to do with attitude. PDP is a transactional party. Every process is taken as a transaction. You will see serious allegations going around how much dollars were exchanging hands. There's a world of difference. World of difference. APC is better managed than PDP.
APC is better managed than the PDP. Barrister Anselm Osuose Ojezua Esquire, do appreciate you for joining us this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation as much as we have enjoyed listening to you actually give us your insight into the political happenings in Edo State this evening. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
I hope when we call on you next time, you will also join us.
To God be the glory.
Thank you so much, and have a good evening. You have been watching, thank you, The Political Lens on Voice of the People. Television will have to leave now, but the conversation is not over. Join us again tomorrow on The Political Lens, right here on the #1 station that gives you more than a voice. Also, join us on other wonderful programs as we continue to strive to bring you a voice on YouTube. We are at VOP TV Live and on SLT. It's channel 264. Jerry Akpelohai will be up next with the issues. My name is Chioma Innocent. Good evening.